Attention, Sex and the City bus tour.
I was wondering if you guys could bring me a copy of the Bhagavad Gita.
Sorry for the spoiler alert, but I just saw the Joker movie, and at the end, he fights the It Clown.
New American Bible.
Hey, can you guys please?
The Quran.
Hello, and welcome to the We Are Trash People podcast about Chris Gethard Presents CGP. We're not the Chris Gethard Presents podcast, no. But we are a podcast that talks about Chris Gethard Presents. I'm Emily Pineapple.
And I'm Forrest, the keeper of the Canon.
And this week we are talking again about Carmen Christopher, who is going to be hosting this week's episode 301, The Great Night Show, which will be airing November 13th, 2019. And he represents the beginning of the third wave, correct?
Exactly, yeah. He opened the whole series, and now he's opening the third wave.
Did he open the second wave as well?
No. But
he'll be opening the third wave. I like the idea that he would open each of the waves. But yeah, he's coming back with the Great Night Show, and the cast is going to include Stranger Things, Netflix's Stranger Things, John Reynolds, who will be the co-host throughout the entire episode. He was also in Search Party in the Hulu TV show version of Four Weddings and a Funeral. And he was also Lawrence, the human fish's old boss at the Auntie Anne's at the LaGuardia Airport. Yeah. And also Purple Hat.
Yes. Yeah, Purple Hat. Planet Scum's own Purple Hat.
And he also does a pre-show to CGP on the Discord. So if somehow you're listening to this and you are not on the Discord, get on the Discord because you're going to be talking to one of the co-hosts of the episode. That's just what's going to happen.
And earlier today, Carmen and Geth were on,
yeah,
too, so you might even get to talk to the hosts.
Yeah. We don't know the call-in topic yet, but Carmen says he thinks that it'll be about some Jerry Springer shit that has gone down in your life or your family.
I'm very excited for that one. That, I think, is a rich opportunity for a lot of great calls.
I don't know if I have any, despite how crazy my members of my family were, in terms of dramatic and overwrought. I guess I just haven't seen enough Jerry Springer.
I mean, it's generally trashy things, fights, any physical altercations are classic Jerry Springer, which I don't think I have either, but
yeah. Well, a little bit about Carmen, just a slight recap. He is Brooklyn-based. He's from Chicago, Illinois. And he's been on At Home with Amy Sedaris, a Maine movie, Late Night with Seth Meyers, MTV's Buggin' Out, IFC Comedy Cribs, and was a 2017 Comedy Central comic to watch. He also has roles on the upcoming season of HBO's High Maintenance, Comedy Central's Alternatino, which looks really fun.
Yeah, I really want to see Alternatino.
And the Netflix original movie, Otherhood. And one of my favorite things of his is Little Banks on Wall Street.
I love Little Banks. You can hear us talk about it in the first episode of our little CGP podcast.
Or you can just go watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just watch it.
You could also just do that.
Throw him some views.
Yeah, throw him those views.
This guy. Throw him some views. Then his frequent collaborators are John Reynolds, of course.
Connor O'Malley, who's best known to TCGS fans as the Beast Masturbator, but also writes for Joe Pera Talks With You, or To You.
Gary Richardson, who appeared as himself on The Great Night Show, too, and was also Chef Benjamin Noodles on The Chris Gethard Show.
He was also Geth's co-host on In Your Dreams with Chris Gethard. And then another frequent collaborator of Carmen's is Ana Fabrega, who wrote for The Chris Gethard Show, co-created Los Spookies, appeared on The Great Night Show 1 as the guest, and played Toyota Prius and the lady who is mad her Uber will not take her to space on The Chris Gethard Show.
And so the first episode we talked about all of the fun things Carmen has done, his oeuvre, his works.
Quite.
The second episode, we talked about his social media, things on his social media that he's posted on social media.
Yeah.
The idea being that social media is an important arm of the comedian's oeuvre. Am I pronouncing that right?
Oeuvre.
Oeuvre.
You have to have a little bit more snobbishness in your voice.
Oeuvre.
Oeuvre.
Oeuvre. oeuvre. It's an important part of his oeuvre as a comedian. And
As a humorist.
As a humorist. And so in this one, we are going to talk about a subject inspired by Carmen, and we will be using his works from his oeuvre
Yes.
to illustrate these concepts. We're talking about pranks.
Yes, we are talking about pranks and having done one.
Fool-arounds, hijinks, mischief.
Hijinks is a good one. Tricks.
Treats, things like that. Because a lot of his social media things are pranks.
Yeah.
He is, well, one, for MTV's Buggin' Out, that was specifically a prank show.
Yeah, he was on as the person pranking members of the public.
Yeah. But he also does his own really fun things, most of which consist of him just being a character in public that demands the attention of the people around him for inane reasons.
Right, yeah.
Like one of my favorites, a lot of this happens on the subway.
Yeah, the subway seems to be one of the top places for pranks.
I have a very romantic view of New York City, with the idea being that when I get on the subway, I will always be subjected to some kind of weird performance art.
I mean, that would be beautiful. I would love that. That would make me move to New York, I think, if that's true.
I mean, it's very cold still.
Okay, never mind. I don't want to move where there's snow on the ground.
Snoo. But yeah, it seems like a very fun place. But yeah, he was yelling at the people on the subway to keep it down because he was busy editing his headshots, which he then displayed to the public on his laptop.
And to be clear, he was standing there with his laptop.
Yeah.
He wasn't even sitting, which I think makes it even funnier.
Yeah. Essentially what I got from it was like the actor trying to like be low key about the fact that he's an actor.
Yeah.
But just wanted to announce to everyone that he was an actor, which I love.
Oh yeah, no, I love that character of his.
On the Sex and the City bus tour, just like being an asshole, basically.
Talking about how he's talking on Tinder. He matched on Tinder with a girl who has the exact same lips as Carrie Bradshaw.
And then like proposing to the woman running the tour.
Yeah.
Ridiculous things like that. Announcing to a subway that he's very proud of his sister who was just graduated, and then proposing to her.
And now one thing I think is interesting about that one is the other pranks we've talked about are just sort of things he's posted on social media as jokes in and of themselves. Mm-hmm. The proposal to his sister is the beginning of a short film he made called The Oscars, which is all about what if he was marrying his sister, played by Mitra Juhari, who's one of the three Busy Debras.
Yeah. And then Carmen orders room service, which is where he's in a hotel and he calls the front desk to order all of the holy books that they offered, which apparently is a thing that happens and that they can do.
Yeah, I've been in hotel rooms where I've seen the listing of all the religious books that you can request, but he requests them all.
So we're going to dig a little bit into the idea of pranks, into the idea of public fool-arounds. I got the chance to ask Carmen on the Discord, how do you come up with your pranks?
Yeah.
And his response in typical Carmen fashion was, I think of stupid things that make me laugh and then I do them. Exactly. And while that is like just a poetic, Cohen-esque? Koan-esque
like
answer.
Zen koans,
a Zen koan.
Not like the Dave Cohens.
No, not like the Dave Cohens. Like a Zen koan. It's a Zen koan-esque answer. It's beautiful in its simplicity. But this is our podcast, the We Are Trash People CGP podcast, where nothing is simple and everything has a million different intellectual explanations that we can dive into on various levels. So we're going to get fucking into it.
Yeah.
We're going to get into what is a prank, the history of pranks, the psychology of pranks, and what they exactly are in a freeform discussion style based on information that I pulled off of various article abstracts on Google Scholar, because you can't read the whole article because the world is an unfair place. And I didn't feel like taking the time to try and find a free version. So what's a prank, Forrest? What do you think a prank is? No, just answer me without looking at my notes.
I think it's when you use a falsehood, often a falsehood, or just surprise to not inflict, but inflict a joke on someone.
Inflict a joke.
On
I love
an
that.
unknowing mark.
I
to
love
use
that.
conterns like the mark.
I love that. And you're pretty right. According to some fucking website I looked at, a prank evokes a typical situation or frame in which normal expectations and appropriate behaviors are understood by most people. The prank violates those normal expectations for that situation or frame with some form of inappropriate or unexpected behavior. So this particular definition is just like any time that the frame of reference for a bunch of people is disrupted in some way. Everyone's walking down the street and suddenly someone is like having a dance party. We're like, we're just going to work. We're just going to get our Starbucks. And all of a sudden there's a dance party. That's unusual. Prank. If there is a victim, the victim of the prank is initially unaware of the fact that they are being deceived. The prank may discomfort, embarrass, anger, or humiliate the victim. And the prank amuses at least some observers who recognize that the event is a prank. So these are, this is a very specific definition, this second one of lists, that I don't think necessarily applies to every prank, but I think is a really interesting framework to start from, that a prank has to be inflicted on someone or some people that don't know they're being pranked. The prank has to cause some kind of usually negative emotion. Or I think that I would add surprise in there.
I think surprise, but maybe they're
Surprise
counting
or
it as a
delight.
negative emotion because surprises can be uncomfortable if you don't, like, not everyone likes them.
That's true.
But
That
I
is
don't
true.
agree because I think your addition's right. But it's like that's the more positive kind of
Yeah.
pranking when you're just doing surprise more than any sort of discomfort.
And I think I would definitely add delight in there.
Oh yeah, no, delight definitely needs to be
Like
there.
surprise and delight. And the prank amuses at least some of the observers who recognize the event as the prank. So it can't be a prank unless someone knows it's a prank and is like, ha, prank. Otherwise, you're just being an asshole in public, right?
Exactly, which is not the same thing.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting. Because most of Carmen's pranks are just him acting like a self-important dumbass in public. And so if he were to do that without the camera watching him, it wouldn't be a prank. It
Right.
would just be him being an asshole.
Right.
Which means that in our current age of social media and cameras and TV, the ability to prank has now expanded wildly. And I
Right.
think that that's super interesting.
Because the viewer at home can be the one who's observing it and knowing that it's a prank. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't think I ended up actually putting in my notes something that I read, but the idea is that a prank can, through its humor, through the use of humor and surprise and all of these things, can lend a voice to individuals who are typically voiceless.
Yeah.
And don't have any other way of sort of expressing anything. But if you fucking prank someone and put it on the internet, it's like, whoa, that's funny. That's
Right.
their perspective if you're clever enough with your prank.
But I think the cleverness is a key thing that I associate with pranks. Is I do, I associate a level of creativity with a prank. It's not just like I mean, with pranks that really work. And like I think that's one thing that is good with Carmen's is his characters are all such weirdos.
Yeah.
That there's a creativity there in his, in the dumb behavior.
Yeah.
In the dumb jokes.
Yeah. And so that brings us to our next question. Like, what are the types of pranks? Like, what are these people doing now that are causing this delight, anger, humiliation,
Right.
surprise, etc.? Well, the 1960s activist and prankster Abby Hoffman divided them into three categories. One is vindictive skewering. So like shaving someone's head, like boxer hazing, fraternity hazing situations. And a sociologist called Irving Goffman described them as degradation ceremonies,
Yeah.
which I think sums it up really well. It's where you're just humiliating someone.
Yeah.
And those suck. Neutral tricks is what the next category Abby Hoffman says exists, and those are like physical punchlines. So having a toilet bowl wrapped in cellophane. So it's like you take a piss and you're like, oh no, the piss is still there.
Yeah.
Whoa. Throwing a pumpkin off a building. These are all examples that they have given. Signing on to someone else's Facebook they've left open and leaving like, oh, like I like pineapple on pizza. I don't know. And Hoffman decided that good pranks humorously satirize human fears or failings.
I mean, that makes sense because Abby Hoffman definitely got up to those kinds of pranks and was part of a Second City show.
Oh, really?
While on trial. This was in the book Improv Nation.
Okay, I don't know anything about Abby Hoffman.
Yeah.
I don't remember things about Abby Hoffman. Tell me these Abby Hoffman stories because clearly, Carmen's an improviser.
So I also
He's
don't
part
know a
of the
ton about
condition.
Abby Hoffman outside of the context of the Second City stuff from the book Improv Nation.
Yeah.
While Abby Hoffman was on trial in Chicago for stuff around the Democratic Convention, Abby appeared on a Second City show that was a mock trial. But in the mock trial, Abby was the judge judging the Second City cast members. Mm-hmm. And every day they'd have to rush Abby out at the end of it. And Abby would always find them guilty because it's a mock. It's a joke. The trial is a joke. Then satirizing the trial Abby was currently on trial in.
Oh, that's funny.
As I think the defendant.
And was Abby on trial for pranking?
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. But regardless, that's really funny. It's not specifically a prank. More
Abby
as a
was
satire.
on trial for conspiracy and incitement for a riot.
Okay, yeah. So that sounds like pranking.
So that sounds like, yeah.
That sounds like pranking. But then there's the question of what do pranks do? I think that Carmen Christopher's pranks fall solidly within the neutral and good category.
Can I actually give one more Abby? Some of the pranks that Abby Hoffman did while in court, in the real court.
Oh, yes.
In the real court, Abby Hoffman one day came dressed in judicial robes as the defendant. On another day, they were sworn in as a witness with his hand giving the finger. And they would just insult the judge in Yiddish too. And so I think it's very interesting that Abby helped come up with some of these categories because definitely was using pranking for a purpose.
Yes, exactly. But why are people pulling pranks? What do pranks do to us? Forrest, what do they do?
Again, without looking, I think it depends on which kind of prank for sure. I think that in some cases, like the ones Abby was doing, there's a attempt to make people think about politics in ways they're not normally necessarily, and sort of ridiculing power to throw that power into question.
What kind of what category do you think Carmen's fall into, or what specifically? I'm totally trying to get at an answer. I'm just going to give it to you.
So I think another one is community building.
Yeah.
Which it's sort of we can bond over the fact that other was pranked.
Yeah.
And those I think often go to the bad ones. Yeah. Frankly. But sometimes the good ones too. Sometimes it's your friend getting pranked and you're like, oh, they'll love this, and then you see it and that's also the thing. But what answer?
Surprise party.
Yeah, like a surprise party. But what answer were you fishing for?
Oh, I was fishing unsuccessfully. Well, kind of successfully. I was just thinking about how Carmen's they're kind of like physical punchlines. Like his body and his character is the physical punchline. He is the dumb character that we are laughing at the absurdity of.
That's true.
And he's using his words and I think that although I don't know that he would necessarily verbalize it this way, but the author is dead. And so I'm going to take the things that he does with my own thoughts.
Sure.
So whether or not Carmen thought of this, I think his characters absolutely satirize human fears and failings. Because I'm editing my headshots.
Yeah.
I'm just editing my headshots. Everyone needs to keep it on because I'm editing my headshots. I think that it's satirizing the desperation of performers.
Yeah, I could see that with that one for sure.
Yeah, like satirizing the desperate need for attention.
Yeah.
And wanting to be recognized within a city that preys on, a lot of the time, actors and performers. Like,
right.
Apparently New York is just overflowing with them. In my romantic view of things. But then, okay, so like what do pranks do and what can they do? These are my beautiful categories. So, in a paper published last year, I don't know what year, I think it was 2007, 3 psychologists argued that the sensation of being duped, anger, self-blame, bitterness, was a singular cocktail that it forced an uncomfortable kind of self-awareness. How much of a dupe am I? Where are my blind spots? Oh, I was right. It was 2007 that the study came out. But I think that it's interesting, and it's definitely one of the elements that pranks can have. Kind of like the sister being proposed to one, because at first on the subway train, it just sounds like this guy's so excited for his sister. Everyone's cheering, clapping for her, heartwarming moment. And then he's like, will you marry me? And everyone's just like, what do we do now?
Well, except for the one lady who's still smiling and starts laughing.
Well, I think that she realized that it was a prank or something.
Yeah.
And experienced like a moment. I don't think that it was the anger, self-blame, and bitterness. I think that it was something that a group of pranksters in Berkeley talked about. Pranksters say that the random events are meant to jolt strangers out of their routines, shake up the monotony of urban life, and create mildly awkward moments that play well on YouTube.
That also reminds me of, to reference Improv Nation again, Bill Murray had a thing where that was what he was trying to do as he was traveling around, was he wanted to, if he saw someone who he thought looked completely asleep at the wheel in their daily routines, he would do something odd to jolt them awake.
That I did not think of that connection between Murray and Carmen. I think that they're doing remarkably similar things.
And of course, they both were Chicago improvisers through and through too.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I never thought of that. Okay, so that's really cool. Of course, pranking in terms of the group mob, improv everywhere. Yeah. There's the videos of all of them listening to the same MP3 and in groups of like 50 people walking around a city, suddenly stopping, doing yoga, dancing, starting to sing, things like that. It's a community building, definitely, among the participants. It helps young people who spend their days in less than exciting office jobs.
Yeah, very true.
They specifically say, which is so true. But is that all it is? Is that all a prank is? Something to make people laugh or be curious or polite?
I don't think that... to make them polite?
I have no idea what word I meant to say, but it wasn't polite.
I don't think that's all they have to be, because I think that there are definitely groups like the Yes Men and those kinds of groups who use it for much more of a specific purpose.
Who are the Yes Men?
The Yes Men are political activists who use pranks as their means of agitating for change. Like they're culture jammers, is how they describe themselves.
That sounds like something Riley Solomon would make up. Soliner. Fuck me.
So like they say that they use lies to tell the truth, and so they'll often spoof like the website of a specific organization with one that is a more directly honest portrayal of what the group is doing. Like they did one of them went on a show as, in a way similar to how the Found Footage Festival actually went on public access. Mm-hmm. Or local news. They went on a BBC World show as Jude Finestra, who was a Dow Chemical spokesperson. And then and it was on like the 20th anniversary of a chemical disaster in India. They would go on and talk about it in very direct ways. Like they made a fake Dow Chemical website that said, we have no intention of repairing all of the damage that we inflicted. And they like often will very specifically mock up the website, like down to the pixel. And when they went on that show, they said that actually we're going to liquidate Union Carbide and use the $12 billion that will get us to provide medical care, clean up the site.
God.
Like they, as a means of pressuring it, pressuring the company, they appear as the company, making false statements that the company will actually be a responsible citizen.
Oh, I love that.
When it won't. And they know it won't, but it's that thing the friction that contradiction generates that highlights the fact that they're not doing anything.
Yeah, it's shaking us out of the normal routine by showing us that the normal routine is bullshit.
Yeah.
And
they've done it with ExxonMobil,
that's really
BP,
cool.
all that stuff.
That reminds me of my next little paragraph about pranks. This guy, Joey Skaggs, longtime media prankster, and has like this blog. This old guy has been doing pranks since the 60s. And has a lot of theories and thoughts about them. One of the fun things he did was in 1976, he called up a local news station with his idea of having a cat house for dogs. A cat house meaning a bordello, meaning a prostitution thing. I was reading this article and it was just like bordello for dogs. And I'm like, I don't know what a bordello is, but I think it's a prostitution place.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those. And then I read another article and it was like a cat house for dogs. And I'm like, that's the joke. Why did you put bordello for dogs when the joke is cat house for dogs?
Yeah.
Because it's the two different animals.
I love that.
Whatever. Super fun. But he has this idea that stunts require a subversive anti-establishment edge for it to be meaningful at all. He says because of that, people, if they don't have that, people are less likely to stop and think about what they're seeing or even care.
Right.
The bar is really lowered. So, for example, he would consider, there was an Improv Everywhere prank where they went to a place where people jog usually and like cheered for them and like handed out like cups of water and acted like it was a race. And they were like really excited.
Yeah.
And some of the people who went through were interviewed and they're like, yeah, I just thought it was kind of funny. Like I thought it was like a weird thing. I was sort of curious for a second and then went about my day. Or continued my run, you know? And so Joey Skaggs would be like, that was a bullshit prank because all it did was like create fun things. It's not really a prank. It's just like a community. I don't know what he would say, but based on his premise, I would say like it's just a community building event for the individuals who are, you know, doing the prank, doing the handing out water and celebrating and stuff, which I think has a lot of value.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be why I would agree that I think that saying it has to have that other purpose is...
Yeah, and I wonder about definitions for those things, because when I think of a prank, like what comes to mind is something that has an edge to it, that is subversive and that elicits feelings of discomfort, confusion, surprise, delight. Like big delight, not just like, oh, people are like cheering for me. I suppose delight falls into that category of the race, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think Improv Everywhere specifically does do a lot more delight-oriented ones than discomfort-oriented ones.
Yeah. And he has some interesting things for what he has as his philosophy, like question authority in all of its forms. Don't give up critical analysis for wishful thinking. Look to more than one source of information, question preconceived notions and prejudices. And so he is doing an art piece essentially with these pranks. Like he disseminates the hoax, that's his hook. The line is making sure that whatever he's doing is being recorded. And then the sinker is him explaining the purpose of the prank afterwards so that the meaning doesn't get lost. And then that's what makes his amazing subversive pranks. I think that something that I really find interesting about Carmen's characters specifically, more than the pranks, is he's doing something kind of in between that. So for example, on Bugging Out, his whole premise was that he's in a mall and he's controlling a drone with a power glove.
Right.
And he gets people to control the drone, and then they fly the drone into the second person involved in the prank.
Yeah.
So it's a guy holding a TV and he falls down a bunch of stairs, or an old lady gets like hit in the head. And it's like, oh no, what does the person who was holding the glove do? And in various cases, Carmen runs off. So the person's like, no, but it was this guy who did this thing. And that obviously is shaking people out of their normal routine, because there's a bunch of people in a mall who just saw this like violence happen, and now they have to watch these people navigate the situation, which is interesting as a social experiment kind of in itself. And it definitely doesn't bring delight. It brings embarrassment and humiliation and fear to the person who thinks that they have caused this problem.
Yeah.
The most heartwarming one was this guy, like, went over to the old lady and he's just like holding the glove and just not like leaving the scene. He's like he has no idea what to do. And he knows that it's not really his fault.
Right.
Because if everything that happened was genuine, like, it wasn't his device, you know?
It was a malfunction.
It was a
device.
malfunction. He was being told to do shit by the guy who owned it.
Who ran. Because Carmen runs immediately.
Yeah, on some of them. And he knows that it's not really his fault, but he's just like, he clearly feels responsible for this lady and like fixing the situation. I'm like, oh my God, what a sweetheart. You just like wrecked his day. But I mean, they're told it's a prank, of course, afterwards. And it's like, that is interesting, but it doesn't have that much meaning behind it, because afterwards, the people on MTV who are like summing up what happened in the show, they don't really provide commentary. They're just like, oh, look how funny it is that these people were scared.
Right. And I think part of that is because it is a descendant of Candid Camera.
Yes.
Not Abby Hoffman or Skaggs.
Yeah.
Because Candid Camera, which was created by Alan Funt, and it used the hidden camera format. It originated it really on TV.
In 1948.
Yeah, it was started as Candid Microphone in 1947 as a radio show.
Whoa, how did Candid Microphone work?
I think it was...
I want to hear a Candid Microphone. What?
I mean, I haven't found one, but my guess is it's just like much more verbal tricks and stuff, because there were things where it was like, oh, we're wandering around and pretending to be UFO investigators, and the bit is more trying to trick people into thinking you're actually there looking for a UFO and like see how they react.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
And often, like, Alan Funt, who created it, was the prankster. And what's interesting, I think, also is, in addition to Candid Camera, he did a movie called What Do You Say to a Naked Lady? Which is directed by him. He's in it, and he secretly records people's reactions to unexpected encounters with nudity or sexuality in unusual situations.
Ooh.
And most of the movie is just him talking to people about sexuality and sexual topics.
That's such a trick. He's like, I'ma make you think about things you thought you were watching comedy.
Yeah, and this was his first thing not regulated by the FCC because it was a movie and not a short. But growing up watching like Candid Camera when they rebooted it, I think his son was doing it with at that point. I definitely didn't take away a political message. Yeah. You know, like, but it was still really funny, and it still did do that, snapping them out of their routine.
And it often played on human fears and failings.
Yeah. And showed how easy it is for someone who seems authoritative to be manipulative.
Yeah. Which I think is in part like an unfair thing to ask of a person not involved in the prank. I think that walking around, this is my problem with pranks, where someone walks up in a lab coat and says, oh no, there's like a contagion in the area, you should be afraid, and then the person's afraid. Like, when we're walking around in society, we have a social contract that assumes that we are all trusting that each other is acting at least somewhat genuinely to a degree, like within the realm of understanding. And I think that it's not wrong to want to trust experts and people who act like experts. No. I think one should obviously, not blindly trust people who look like experts, right. But I think that it's fair that if I'm standing in an area and a guy comes up to me in like a uniform of sorts and says, you need to get out of this area, like there's gonna be an explosion or there is a problem or there is this or that, I'm getting the fuck out of the area. I'm not standing and saying, oh, I don't know if I believe you. Like, where's the camera? I'm gonna investigate this for my fucking self. No.
Right. And that's why I don't, of the candid camera pranks, I don't really like the ones that are like a uniformed officer talks people into getting in the x-ray scanner at the airport and like, going through it themselves. It's like, you're not going to have to do that.
Yeah.
What I prefer is the ones where it's more fanciful, like someone is directing traffic and then the car that is coming towards them splits into two and goes around them and then reforms behind them. Or one I'm going to link in the show notes is someone is just in an office and then a guy hanging from balloons slowly lowers into view and offers to sell them 2 balloons because they're gradually selling all of their balloons so that they can reach the ground. And like, those are the ones I prefer, which is much more of the shaking them out of their routine thing.
Yeah.
Here's something so fanciful and so absurd that you know can't happen. Mm-hmm. You're not on autopilot now. What are you going to do?
Yeah. And one can always intellectualize basically anything to find some kind of satire or deeper meaning. Yeah. And that's part of why I really prefer and like Carmen's jokes where he is being a character.
Me too.
And usually a specific character, because I feel like that character is an expression of like the deep fear and embarrassment and desperation that like kind of lives inside of everyone, and he's just putting it on display. Like, it is embarrassing to be that person, right? Like one does not want to think of oneself as someone who will stand in the middle of like a crowded street in Los Angeles and be like, who said that his podcast was dope?
Earwolf said his podcast was funny sauce, but they weren't going to pick it up for a full series.
Yeah. So the idea of like taking that fail, you know, that someone just quite didn't like your shit and needing to justify yourself and being loved and announcing that to a street. Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Like, I wouldn't do that because I would be embarrassed to do that. So we're kind of being forced to like look at that part of the human psyche, especially as someone who's sort of drawn to performance and arts.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's what I see in it.
I see that, and I see it as, now I'm going to put on my art critic hat even more so.
Yes.
You know, it's really a response to the alienation of modern life, where it's that like need, like you were saying, it's that need for the person who so needs attention and approval in this like sea of anonymous people that New York City is.
Yes.
That they're going to exclaim about like, in that case, it was LA and it's the tiniest victory. Like someone said it was funny, but not funny enough to make a series. Or some of the Sex and the City bus tour ones where it's just like, hey, you know what's even cooler? The orange is the new black pub crawl. This is about me now. It's about me. Look at me.
Yeah.
Because a lot of his character on stage is that sort of.
Well, when he plays that particular like dumb guy character.
The dumb guy character that he sometimes does in his stand-up. You know.
And other shorts and things.
Yeah, has that.
Yeah. And I think that for me at least, the places that he's doing this, and granted, there are places where he's doing other stuff anyways, like living, and LA has all sorts of stuff. These are media towns. And so by performing a desperate actor just on the street, just like in public, or a desperate performer or desperation in that way, I think it's a commentary on the situation that performance and art is in those places. Like, you're told this dream, like so many people go there. Carmen went there to perform, to be a performer, because you go to New York to do things, to create stuff, to get big, to get on shows. You go to LA to write on shows, to be a good stand-up, to get in the movies, all those things. And like, it doesn't happen for most people. It's really, really hard. Like, if you want to be a freaking performer anywhere, you're not going to make any money. You're going to have a shitty day job or live super rough,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to work your ass off all the time, and there's no guarantee of any kind of form of success.
No.
And there's no safety net because we live in a culture that doesn't value those things, that does not value art, artistic expression, or the humans who are creating it.
So it's interesting because I definitely did not bring that level of the performer element. I didn't see that except for the headshot one.
Mm-hmm.
I really saw it much more as specifically going into the subway, which is one of those, or a bus tour, but especially with the subway ones, a space where we are surrounded by people
And we're stuck there.
and like to pretend we're not.
Ooh.
We like to hide from the fact that other people are around us by listening to podcasts or looking at their phones. I certainly do this all the time when I'm on the subway here.
Of course.
And
the BART train.
Well,
We don't have a subway.
okay, the light rail here, but especially BART, but also the light rail.
You mean the mobile crackdown?
I mean Muni, yeah. Well, I have been behind that multiple times on Muni. But he forces you to recognize, hey, you at least have to recognize that there's one other person here, but also by doing that performance on the subway, you are then having to recognize also everyone else on the train who is also looking at him and reacting, and then you are now part of a group. You're part of the audience of this performance. As opposed to the completely individualized, atomized being not surrounded by everyone that you're pretending to be while you're reading or playing Mario Kart or whatever.
And in the way that we're all kind of becoming micro audiences, a micro audience of one is consuming the performance of the podcast, of the YouTube video, of this or that. And now suddenly we're in a different kind of performance.
Yeah, which wakes you up out of your routine because the routine is to, during the commute, pretend you're not on the commute.
Yeah. I think that that's super interesting. I also definitely don't want to underplay in all of this intellectualizing. It's just fucking funny.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the reason I like these videos is that they're just really, really funny.
His character is funny. If I were to encounter this in real life, I would giggle to my goddamn self. There are people, it's really funny on the subway with the headshot one. You can just hear a woman saying, "Shut up."
Yeah, I love that.
Exasperated. This poor woman has had the longest day. And now this guy is using her commute as a vehicle to do a stupid character for his own YouTube video.
Yeah.
And she's just "Shut up." I would fucking laugh because
I would laugh so hard.
I love being jolted out of my daily routine, but in such a way that is also not threatening.
That and that distinction. So Connor O'Malley has a similar, when he was on Vine, he had similar videos where he would be riding his bike through New York and then would get people to roll down their windows and then would have conversations with them. But it's Connor O'Malley, and so he was specifically doing it with rich people in Mercedes, and then just having, obviously it's him. So he would yell, "Are you Geraldo Rivera?"
Oh my god!
And just not.
It's kind of scary.
Much more
it's kind of
scary and
threatening.
aggressive.
It demands immediate personal response.
Right, which is that's why I think it's interesting that being part of the same Chicago cohort, both Connor and Carmen play with this kind of material. But Connor's is, not unsurprisingly, much more aggressive. It has a much sharper edge, darker. Whereas
and
Carmen's
requires individual participation for it to work.
Carmen's is lighter, goofier, and you'll definitely have the communal response, but it doesn't force you to deal with him.
Yeah, the audience, as an audience member, quote unquote, in the subway, you can consume his performance and just be quiet and to yourself and not really interact with anyone or with him.
Yeah.
He's not in none of the videos did he specifically call out anyone who responded to him.
No. Unless
they or responded to him just by laughing or by looking at him. when someone like said something to him, he would respond in character.
Right.
I think at one point, like some guy was like, congratulations on something. And then the guy turned around, and he had a dog in his arms, and Carmen's like, oh my God, a dog.
Yeah. And then, but also on his Joker one that he recently uploaded.
Oh, I love that one.
He makes the joke that no one's responding. There's like 10 to 12 seconds of just him doing the Joker spoiler and no one reacting. And no one saying anything, and that becomes part of the joke.
Yeah.
So the collective response is part of it no matter what, but I agree that is a distinction.
Well, and it's interesting because not only is it a public prank that has an effect on the audience that is there watching him, all of that audience are now characters, are performers, are participants in the product that is the YouTube video that is being consumed by us, the even more invisible audience, to giggle at. To giggle at, in a large part, their discomfort.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is...
it's not just a funny character. It's also funny to watch people have to deal with this character.
Right, yeah. It is funny watching that character going into a public space where you're not expecting a character to go and to see people have to deal with that. And
you're expecting his humiliation. He expects his own humiliation. Like his character, like the joke is like, I'm going to be super desperate. Yeah. And the public is not going to be super nice to me, or they're going to be really like confused. Especially with the sister one, it's like, I feel like that's the most pointed edge of his things, and it's the only one that isn't, I think, punchlined by him being kind of ignored.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, the only one that he had a larger purpose for, other than the joke of itself.
But it is a super fucking amazing joke, and I want it performed everywhere. I want like that to go viral, like make everyone like super excited for you, or, you know, oh, how sweet. His sister just graduated and he's so proud of his little sister. They're getting fucking married. Like tricking people into participating into something that they don't want to be a part of once they learn more. It's like the Martin Urbano joke where he comes on stage and he says, when I say the, you say poor. Kill the, and then people are tricked, so they're like bah, and that's the joke. It's everyone is like, whoa, we are all discomforted and tricked together. But because it is clearly within the context of a joke, Martin Urbano's doing it in a comedy club, right? We can now laugh at it because it's safe. We're all safe here. The violation was benign. I think that. That's what I think about the incest one. He got a lot of laughs on the incest one. They were very like private laughs to themselves. Oh, yeah. Most people were like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, I don't know how to react to this. And then they would laugh nervously. And I'd be like, ha, I too would be nervous in that situation. And also like laugh heartily because I would decide that it was a prank. Yeah. And then appreciate that someone was doing this ridiculous thing.
Based on what people on the Discord said when you brought up your New York thing about how you expect that, I think it's also that living in New York for a while, you do eventually go, if something happens on the subway that is too strange in this kind of a way, it's probably an artist.
I love that.
Especially because they saw it being filmed.
Yeah, that's true. That's the other thing is I think that they're filmed on phones. Yeah. But I don't know. I think that it's...
I think they definitely normally are, but I don't know if that one was because it's for his short.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, I think that, the thing that I take away most from our conversation about pranks and specifically the kind of things that Carmen is doing, what he may or may not be communicating, whether or not he thought of it beforehand, whether he thought, I'm going to satirize the desperation of the starving artist in the entertainment industry or not. Right. He's doing a funny thing that is shaking people out of their routines, that is pointing a spotlight on the public when it's consumed in the YouTube form, and is like so much like Bill Murray. Yeah. I didn't realize that connection, except that Carmen doesn't have like the built-in character of Bill Murray that everyone recognizes. His character is like a fundamental human emotion. Like he belongs in that Inside Out movie on Pixar. He's one of the little colored persons.
Yeah.
He's yellow.
He's not Bill Murray, celebrity deigning to like lower himself to the status of us mere mortals. He's one of us.
Yeah.
In a way that Bill Murray can't be.
He's inside of us, essentially.
Well, and that's the other part. Yeah, is definitely that he's one of us and he is us.
Yeah. I think that he was absolutely wasted in MTV's Bugging Out, and I would love to see
like they
him.
didn't utilize him properly.
Yes.
I thought you meant he was like totally wasted.
Oh, no.
like,
He was
what?
not utilized to the height of his abilities, and I would love to see him doing an Impractical Jokers style thing.
Yeah, I mean, especially
I want to see what he would do with that.
I think that their format would be better for him rather than the candid camera format of trick props, and isn't it, funny that the audience isn't in on it, making his character the butt of the joke like the Impractical Jokers do.
Yeah.
I think would be very good, because having him, because their whole thing is, if you haven't watched it, there's the Tenderloins, who are an improv group. One of them goes out, the other three are behind the scenes daring the one who's out to keep doing more and more ridiculous things, to punch it up until... Yeah.
And to be a ridiculous character.
Yeah.
I would love to see him do that with Connor O'Malley.
Yeah.
I think that they are a glorious team, and I would definitely throw Gethard in there for at least part of it so that we can laugh at Gethard's discomfort with the whole situation.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see Gethard reacting to Connor daring Carmen to do things and Carmen's responses to Connor, and then Gethard being like, no! And they could be called the 3 C's, because it's Chris, Carmen, and Connor.
I would totally watch them doing that kind of a show.
Yeah. C squared. But it's not squared. There's 3 of them.
It's cubed.
Oh, it's a prank. Oh, you're right. It could just be cubed. Not just me knowing that the thing I said was wrong and trying to cover for it wildly. But yeah, I'm super, super excited for the Great Night Show. Carmen is so fucking funny. I love seeing him improvise with people.
Yeah.
I think that he is tremendous at like making the people around him funny. And so I'm excited to see how he performs with Purple Hat.
Well, that's why I'm interested in seeing it, because it sounded like it's going to be a competition to be his full co-host.
Ooh.
And so I think that, because like John Reynolds, Carmen said John Reynolds would be there the whole time, but that the battle to be his co-host is heating up, and that's part of what's going to be on the Great Night Show. So I'm very interested to see him do it, because it could easily become sort of like you were saying, an Impractical Jokers thing where it's pushing people to like, hey, what are you going to do? Do this, amp it up.
But people being like him,
Purple Hat,
trying to get like the normal people, the audience, to do these things, which is fun. And it's kind of what, if he does that, it's kind of what Klon does.
Well, the only people, that's a good point. The only people he's explicitly said who are going to be on it, as far as I've seen, are John Reynolds and now Purple Hat. It was going to initially be the guy Purple Hat competed with, but they reviewed the tape and Purple Hat did win.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if that third person could be someone. It could either be Justin Linville again, or it could be an audience member getting brought up who hasn't been on before.
I really hope that it's that. I really want to be able to compare Carmen interacting with an audience member to get them, to train them to perform for the audience and what they're doing, compared to Klon doing it, where Riley is doing it classic clown mime style, where you bring someone up, you mime for them what they are supposed to do, and then they do it. And like the humor isn't the delight of watching them like succeed or fail and how the clown responds to that.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that would contrast. I said contrast. I didn't even mean to say it, but I think the contrast would be really interesting to see.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. What do you expect to see, Forrest?
I mean, it's tricky to say what I expect, because I think whatever it is, it'll be wrong, and that might be the prank itself.
Ooh.
But I think we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another physical challenge like the ice bucket challenge that we saw at the end of Great Night 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's a physical challenge is what I expect. What do you expect to see?
I expect penises.
Really?
Oh yeah, every time. Disembodied
Oh,
penises.
I guess it has been every time.
Yes, disembodied penises. As always, one day I'm going to be right. You know?
I mean, probably.
One day I'm absolutely going to be right. But overall, I'm just really, really excited to see Carmen again. He has a new hour that he's performing. He had his hour, which was I'm the Weird Guy.
Yeah.
That he toured a bit, but he has a new hour. I don't know what it's called.
A lot of the promo art I've seen has just been hi. Like hello, hi, not hi.
That sounds fun. So definitely if you are in New York, he tours like around, well, he tours fucking everywhere because he's a comedian who tours. But if you're there, freaking look it up. Look up his new hour. See it. Report back to us. DM us in the Discord. I'm Emily Pineapple in the Discord.
And if you're in London, Carmen's going to London on January 9th at the Moth Club. And all the proceeds will go towards renovating Big Ben and cleaning up the River Thames in preparation for the next Fire Festival.
Oh my God, I love him.
He also asked, where are my fish and chip heads at? Which I just love as a way to ask your British fans to check you out.
That's amazing. Is he going to be doing anything stateside with his fancy new hour?
I mean, I'm legitimately just looking through his Twitter right now, so I'm not sure. But he does want you to listen to his guy, the Dalai Lama, and check out the Dalai Lama's books.
So do what Carmen asks. Find him on social media and check out the Dalai Lama.
His hour is called Hi.
Oh, that's fun. Check out his hour and report to us. Tell us how you like it, what's great about it, what you love about it. All those things.
Apparently it has sketches in it even.
That's so exciting. Yes, no, everyone please report back to us. Someone on the Discord, Kurt Vornegut, saw Connor O'Malley performing with, I think, Megan Stalter doing some fun stuff. And they reported back to us about it. And that was super, super fun. So go see their stuff. Check it out. Tell us how you like it. And see CGP this Wednesday, November what?
13th.
November 13th.
Wednesday the 13th.
Wednesday the 13th. Join us for a great, great night.
I was wondering if you guys could bring me a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, the Book of Mormon, the Eight Noble Truths, King James Bible, the Quran, New American Bible, Tao Te Ching, the Torah, and What is Scientology? I want all the copies, just I got a little bit of downtime this morning.